Hi, I'm Kim Raynor, and I want to welcome you to episode 19 of All About Spirits, Life After Cancer. And I will be set up here very quickly and quit wiggling around so your eyes don't go crazy while you're watching this. It is so good to be back outside doing these shows. It's been a while since I've been able to be out here. And it's finally warm enough that I can be out here, but it's icier than heck. So even though I'm outside, I'm going to be standing still while I do this video today. So today's episode is episode 19, like I said, and it's called The Secret Languages of Spirit and Healing. And each Monday, I do this show all about spirits, life after cancer, because if you've been diagnosed with cancer, you know that you get thrown a curveball like you have never experienced before. It impacts everything from our physical bodies to our emotional state, to our work lives, to the relationships with our families and friends, and it can be a real challenge. And after we're done with treatment, stepping back into our lives after that can be a real challenge too. So each Monday, I spend, 15 to 20 minutes just talking about life after cancer and giving ideas on how to step back in and how to maybe take a little bit more active part in your own healing and in your own life. So I hope you find something helpful in today's show. And like I said, today's episode is called The Secret Languages of Spirit and Healing. And to set the stage for today's show, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in the Midwest, some of you know that, in Wisconsin. So I'm blessed to have Lake Michigan very close. And I grew up in a family that loved to rock hound and collect stones. And we would spend vacation time near Lake Superior collecting rocks and in Lake Michigan collecting rocks. And so I amassed quite a collection. And I was the kid that was always walking around with stones in my pocket looking for the next pretty and just enjoying that. So in the mid-'80s, when they first started talking about the healing property of stones, people started talking about stones having benefits, that you can heal things in your life if you use stones. That absolutely piqued my interest because I had amassed quite a collection of stones myself, and I was curious. So I started poking around in that information, and I started looking at different stones, the kind of stones that I had. And I learned that, the different properties do seem to have different qualities, and that they do resonate to different things. And that crystals have different properties, and there's actually different shapes of crystals, and that those have different properties. So I started poking around and playing with different stones, and I would find myself being attracted to a specific kind of stone. And when I was attracted to it, then I would go look up the information on what the stone meant, what the value of the stone was. And I would often find that the properties of those stones really did work with either things that I was going on with me physically in my life, or sometimes things that were going on for me emotionally in my life. So I started creating jewelry and started just making tools for myself out of the different stones. And I began with spheres or rounds because they seemed the less harmful of any stone. I didn't want to do anything that was going to cause problems for myself. So I started playing with stones. And I was going through a hard time in my life at that point. It was, the mid-'80s, and I was transitioning into becoming a single mom, and relationships with my family had changed, and certainly, ending the relationship with my husband, that was a big change. And in my process of looking for tools to get me through that process, I turned to stones. I started looking at stones for that. And I found myself attracted to a couple of different kinds of stones, but the one that I was most frequently playing with was jaspers. And jaspers are a stone for healing. They call them the supreme nurturers. And I didn't know that at the time. I just thought they were pretty, and I really liked those particular stones. So Three different kinds of jasper were really attractive to me. The first one was called leopard skin jasper, or some people call it orbicular jasper. And that particular stone, one of the properties of that stone is it attracts to you the things that you need to be able to heal your life. That was attractive to me for what was going on in my life at that time. The second stone that I found really attractive was also a jasper, and it was called poppy jasper. And that one was to help rectify challenges or difficulties or problems that you had going on in your life. And it seemed really interesting to me that one of the stones I was attracted to was to draw to me the experiences I needed. The next stone I was attracted to was to help rectify challenges that I was having. And then the third stone that I was attracted to, it was a stone called unakite. And that stone, when I looked up the properties of that one, that stone was to help bring satisfactory conclusions to challenges that you were going through. So the more I started poking around in that, the more interesting stones became for me. And I started making myself all kinds of different jewelry, and I was wearing it, and I was having a great time with it. I found a stone buddy that I was playing with, and we had a great time hanging out and doing the stone stuff. And I was working at a nonprofit agency at the time, and I was wearing the jewelry that I was making to work, and my boss said, "Hey, that's really cool. Where did you get that?" And I told her that I made it, and she asked if I would be willing to make something for her. And I said, "Yeah, do you have something in mind?" And she said, "Yeah." She said, "Actually, I'd like a pair of red and black earrings." I said, "Perfect. I'll make them for you, and I'll bring them in." So I made the earrings and I brought them to her. And when I gave them to her, she said, I looked up the information. And the black stone was to help with grounding. And the red stone was chalcedony, which is to help protect against the effects of dementia. And when I gave her those earrings, she looked at them and she said, "Oh, these are absolutely perfect. They're going to look great with my outfit, the one that I'm wearing to the Alzheimer's training on Saturday." And it's like, what? I didn't realize that stones had that kind of quality. I didn't realize that I could pick up on somebody else's thoughts and ideas, and that the stones might actually have an impact on whatever else it was going on. I thought they were just fun tools to play with for me. So I said, "Hey, are you interested in knowing what the stones are about?" And I shared the information with her. And she was excited about it, and she was interested in it. And that actually was the beginning of my very first business, where I started making jewelry for people. I would make them tools based on what was going on in their life, and I would use the stones as the center point of the jewelry, and they became healing tools. So I hung around and I played, and I had a great time with that, and that was a great business. I had jewelry in all sorts of different places. My mom and I did the business together, and we had a lot of fun. And while I was still working at the nonprofit agency, my boss came to me one day and said, "Hey, my son is getting ready to go to Australia, and I'm wondering if you would pick up some stones for him. And I'd like him to be able to have them and use them for bartering." And I thought, "Yeah, sure, I could do that." And she said, "Okay. Just a little bag of them would be great." So I went and I started looking at the different stones. And as I'm pulling the stones, I'm looking up the information, because that's what I'm doing now. I'm really invested in this. And the stones that I'm pulling up have to do with blood work. It has to do with anemia. It has to do with low energy, poor iron. And those are all things that have been part of my life for most of my life. And I thought, man, I must be getting my energy mixed in with my intention here. So I went out to the parking lot and I asked the universe to help me become a clear channel, and I went back in and I finished buying the stones, and I kept getting stuff that had to do with blood. And I thought, well, okay, I'm just going to trust that the universe knows what it's doing. So I got the stones and I brought them back to her, and I said, "So Carolyn, what exactly is your son going to be doing when he goes to Australia?" And she says, "Oh, he's working on his doctorate, and he's going to do his final thesis. He's drawing blood on the Aborigines for AIDS testing." And I was shocked. I had never even met that man. And somehow or another, the universe connected this thing, which I didn't even have a name for at that point, but it started connecting the energy for that. And I was able to pick tools that he was going to use for work that I didn't even know that he was planning on doing. So that was pretty amazing to me. And that really got me hooked on the idea that everything that goes on in life is enmeshed and it's interconnected. And, what I thought the web of life was is really different than what the web of life perhaps really is. So I started learning more about the stones, and the more I learned, the more things became enmeshed, and the more enmeshed they became, the more hungry I got. And I learned about all different kinds of things. I played with stones. I played, like I said before, in other shows. I played with essential oils. I played with acupuncture and Reiki and all sorts of stuff. So when I was diagnosed with my cancer, it wasn't really a stretch for me to start looking at complementary practices and to say, okay, what can I use to bring energy in that's going to help me heal whatever it is that's going on for me? And I know that some people, this might be really kind of woo-woo and really make you scratch your head, or some people it might even make them a little scared. But what I have found is that God works in a lot of different ways. And I don't care if you call it God or spirit or the universe or, whatever it is that you want to call it. It works in a lot of different ways. So why not harness the different ways that energy comes to us, that spirit comes to us, and start bringing that in as a reason or a tool to help me start healing myself. And those were tools that I used throughout my healing process of my cancer treatment. And over the next several weeks, I think what I'm going to do is start sharing some of the tools that I used. I'll share a little bit about the different experiences I've had with the tools, and I'll go a little bit deeper into the different practices, because I had so many experiences like the experience with the stones throughout my process. And this has been a 30-year journey for me, learning how life is interconnected and how things really are all about spirit. So the target or the focus, I guess, of my next several shows are going to be talking about the different tools, and I'll see how I'm inspired on the morning of which tool I'm going to talk about first. So I'm not going to share what's coming up with that next, but I will say that just opening my mind and my heart to the chance that the world could function like this, that there is something bigger than me that has influence and impact, and that it really wants what's best for me, has changed the perspective and the function of my life. My invitation to you today is to open your mind and open your heart to just the idea that maybe Spirit or God or the universe wants what's best for you, that it really is looking out for you, and that everything that's presented in your life